On this episode of Survive and Thrive 8791, we welcome newly inducted Hall of Fame head coach Bo Ryan into our studios. This is going to be a good one as he talks about preparation for one of the biggest achievements ever in basketball. Here we go. Good morning. What is up? Welcome to another episode of Survive and Thrive 8791. I'm your host, Coach Decora. We are in the Buck and Honey's remote studios on the east side of our great capital city, Madison, Wisconsin. You can follow the podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, and YouTube at Survive and Thrive 8791. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at tdecora8791, as well as finding me on Facebook at Tim Decora. Glad you could join us today. Today, we welcome back, and this kind of rolls off my tongue now the more times you say it, is Naismith Hall of Fame head coach Bo Ryan back in studios. On Sunday night, October 13th, 2024, you were officially inducted into the Hall of Fame. Just one of around 100 college coaches to have a seat inside those walls. I was one of about 24 UW-Platteville folks to make the journey to Springfield, Massachusetts. I know there's a couple of us talking that there's probably not too many people in the world that know somebody that is inside. We were inside the walls of the Hall of Fame, but not as inductees. And here we are talking to Coach Ryan, Hall of Fame head coach. How does that feel?
Well, it feels very gratifying for the simple fact that it brought to the forefront all the players, all the managers, all the administrators, everybody that I had a chance to interact with over the course of 40 years. And I'm a representative of every player and every person who was involved in our basketball program, on our teams, and behind the scenes, also all those people that made things happen in a positive way. So it's a nice feeling to know that you're a part of a collective of people who made it happen, and I'm proud to say that. As a representative of all the places where I had a chance to coach, to say that I was fortunate enough to be with some of the greatest people in the world. And that is very heartwarming to me and my family.
I know we're going to talk about some of your thoughts on the whole weekend here a little bit, but so the guys that I saw out there were former players, and I was just looking at the Platteville guys. Former players, an assistant coach. There was a broadcast guy that covered games out there. Obviously, her family, other assistant coaches along the way, and it was just really cool to see some boosters that flew in. The current head coach of at least UW-Platteville, Jeff Gard, his brother Greg, South Carolina head coach Lamont Paris, Rob Jeter, just to name a few that made it out there. And I know there's a couple of us that talked that we wouldn't have been out there. There's no other reason to go out there other than be a part of the whole thing. And here we got to be a part of the whole situation. And yeah, I think, I know we talked about this before, that you were going to make us proud. And I've talked to a number of people since we got back of how your speech carried a lot of weight, and you are not a man of few words, but you happened to wrap it up pretty concisely out in Massachusetts. And I know you made us all proud and of just knowing who you are, and different people from Pennsylvania were proud, and Southwest Wisconsin, and probably Racine and Brookhaven, some of the fellows at Brookhaven Middle School, but junior high school, yes. Racine and parts in between that all felt like a part of us were going into the Hall of Fame as well. So yeah, definitely made us pretty proud. So welcome back to the show. I'd love to hear. Uh, uh, we're going to get to a little more, but there's something last night that you and I had an opportunity to go to, and I'm bringing this up and doing a little promo for it was the first public screening of a movie called, or a documentary called A Road at Night. The documentary was produced by John Roach, who I've gotten to know. You've known him for a long time, and his team at Roach Projects. The documentary is about the untimely car accident that University of Wisconsin assistant basketball coach Howard Moore and his family were in. Um, the documentary goes through everything leading up to uh, last March 2024, when Howard was able to Coach Moore was able to attend the Purdue game, but in that car accident, Coach Moore lost his wife and his daughter as a result of as a result of a drunk driving accident. Howard and his son Jarrell survived that car accident. Jarrell's doing great. Howard's on the mend, continuing to be on the mend. But the documentary was amazing. There were scenes that made me kind of like I've taken a little bit of John Roach and applied it to the podcast here, where we're trying to make you laugh, cry, and think. And if we can do that all in one sitting, we've done our job. And you do a great job of doing that. You make us laugh, you make us think. Hey, I don't know if you made us cry yet, but we might get there someday. Anyway, that documentary made me laugh, cry, and think. What were your thoughts? I know this was kind of the second time you had a chance to look at it a little bit. What were you thinking, Coach?
Well, I was just thinking of, when you say it was as a result of a drunk driver, just so people know, it was the other driver.
Oh, thank you.
that
Yes.
that was intoxicated by all the tests that came out, and extremely such a downer for everybody as you're watching this. And then all of a sudden you're starting to think, well, now maybe there's some messages that we can get across out there. Maybe there are people who will learn from this. Maybe there are people who will not go out and get in their car after they've had several drinks. And John Roach did a great job of pointing out how many people that there's a drunk driving driver killed person every, was it 39 minutes?
Yeah.
Somebody dies as a result of a drunk driver. So, how many times, for the listeners, for people out there, if you do drink, how many times did you have maybe a few and then got out and got in your car and thought, oh, well, I'm fine. So he definitely got that message across. And they made a great showing of the culture that had developed around Howard, not only as a coach, but as a player. What he did for Finley and Tracy Webster and Richard during that time. He was the leader in the locker room. He was the guy that everybody counted on. And he was always he was so inquisitive about the game. He would ask me 20 questions a day when he was my assistant, and he was curious, and he wanted to learn as much as he could every day. And he interacted with other students on the campus. He was a great ambassador for the men's basketball team, and he was so well respected. And unfortunately, this accident has left him in a state where he still needs a lot of work, but he's getting the best care that he can possibly get right now. And it was very poignant as to his role as a student athlete and his role as a coach. And we were blessed to have had him on our staff a couple times, and he definitely went with that motto that I've used: if you get hired for a nickel, give them a dime's worth. Howard was hired for a nickel and gave us a dollar's worth. he was just that much of a presence. He had that presence that you just don't see enough of in our world today. So it's very tragic. There's still hope, and the Roach people did a fantastic job of getting the message across from A to Z.
Yeah, it's just crazy how you made already a couple of the call to actions. Instead of maybe saying the message being don't drink and drive because we've heard that and still people continue to do it.
Yeah.
Maybe the message needs to be going the other way. Instead of drinking and driving, what should you do? Call an Uber, call a taxi, call a friend. Shoot, grab a hotel if you're close by. $100 hotel, $150 hotel night is probably cheaper than $3,000 or $4,000 OWI on top of all of the shame and disgrace that a person has to feel going through that. And then you multiply that, who knows? You can't put a price tag on crashing your car and taking two other people's lives. Not only are you destroying somebody else's life, but now you're actually probably, because you could be going to prison and you're going to destroy your own life when all it takes is more people just saying, you know what, I'm not driving, I'm getting an Uber. And you mentioned, yeah, maybe you come to maybe a bar should be doing, maybe bars should be doing that. Toss your keys in this thing, and then yeah, you can stay here, but we're going to get you a cab. I know there's different groups that are pushing for those kinds of things because it saves lives. And that I posted on some of my social media accounts that stat. I found it on the World Wide Web, the internet. Uh, a person dies every 39 minutes involved in a drunk driving accident. And then after they showed that, they also showed in memory of Howard's wife and daughter, and two very heart-wrenching words on a screen caught my attention big time. Yeah, so I think they did a great job of that. So, that we're going to transition to our first segment, but that film, the documentary "A Road at Night," is probably going to hit some theaters in the Madison area soon, where some people can get their eyes on it. And then John Roach and his group are going to try to get to some of the film festivals, and maybe you and I can tag along. Maybe they go to Cannes. We can go with. We'll take the podcast with. But anyway, that documentary was very similar to some of the promos that I've seen done with Buck and Honey's, our sponsor in our remote studios and their 4 restaurants. So just like the Roach Projects, who have 5-star service and people, Buck and Honey's has great food and 5-star customer service. That's what keeps people coming back, with locations in Sun Prairie, Monona, Waunakee, and Mount Orb. There's always one close by. So the first segment today is going to be Coach Ryan. Coach, you're going to talk about presentation prep. And I know you are such a stickler. You've always been a stickler, which has made, I think, a lot of us sticklers for the little things in life. And so anybody watching the episode today, you can go and somebody's doing a presentation, getting a prestigious award somewhere. Hey, go to Survive and Thrive 8791, episode 11. He's got this basketball coach that went into the Hall of Fame. This guy gave a lot of great pointers that you wouldn't have even thought of. So before you went to Springfield, you did some prep, and I heard you and your wife, Kelly, practiced putting on the coat. I don't know if we can talk about right or left arm, which one's better. And then I also heard from John Roach. He helped you do some of the prep, a little bit of the prep for the speech. But when I talked to him I texted him after your speech out in Springfield, I said, you did a great job with Coach Ryan on that speech prep. And he said, I kind of helped a little bit, but it was all Coach. So he wanted to spin that back on you, that it was. So let's talk about some of the little things that you did, because you took some of that Yeah, you're playing for basketball. Yeah.
Well, one thing for sure is that I've watched the Masters every year, and you watch the coat go on, the green coat, sport coat, and I've seen 3, 4, 5 different golfers struggle and get all bent out of shape because it just wasn't going on correctly. You could tell they hadn't spent any time. So I thought, okay, Kelly was she volunteered to be the one to put the coat on. And I said, Kelly, we have to practice. And at first she looked at me like, what? Practice what? I said, putting the coat on.
Did she drop an AI reference? Practice. What are we talking about? Practice?
Well, the MC for the event, for the ring and the coat ceremony, she did say that. She said, you practice. You're talking about practice. And we pulled it off without one little slip up at all. So yeah, it was as smooth as it can get.
Yeah, I think I referenced you in your speech. Well, actually, it wasn't your speech. We're going to talk about the autograph stuff here in a little bit, but when they showed those little clips of you getting some autographs from Doug Collins and Chauncey and Vince Carter like the day before, you were just smooth. But I think you probably, again, you've had some practice signing autographs, but yeah, you just made putting on that coat. Did you go right or left hand? Remember?
Right hand first, and then your left is a little dip. Yep, a little backhanded dip, and then the person that's putting it on sets it up, and you slide right in, and it's over.
So yeah, just those little things. Now, I also heard we talked about this at the intro here that John Roach helped you with some speech prep. What did John do with his crew?
John cleaned up some verbiage, and his use of the English language is very sophisticated,
impeccable,
and the right way to say. He knew what I was saying, and he might tweak it a little bit, and he did. And there's some areas, and then he also talked about the body movements, where the hand should be, and all those things that we had back in speech class, back in high school. And so the public speaking part was, I needed to get a message across. I needed to thank people. That's the main thing. Forget everything else. And with John's help, I think, I felt personally that I had a chance to thank those that hired me, that played for me. That I even thanked the managers, and I got texts from managers saying, "Hey, coach, you talked about us. That was great. Nobody else said anything about the managers or but everybody that's played knows how important managers are. But it was and the speech was, I followed a guy that went for too many minutes over his limit. And
yes,
so
he did.
I had to make sure that I was within my time limit, and it worked out. And I got a chance to thank a lot of people.
Yeah, had Rob Jeter, known where we were sitting, we could have stood up because we were right behind the teleprompter. So we could have gave the, hey, coach, two minutes or time to cut it off. But no, I thought you did. I thought you did great. And yeah, very much like the managers, talking to a couple of the
And I even said I might even thank the refs. Did you catch that?
Yes. We might even thank the refs. So Dave Kelleher, if you're listening out there, you got a little mention at the Hall of Fame induction ceremony. I think you touched a lot of people's hearts without having to go through a long laundry list of names and people. And I know the guys that I was with afterward and I've talked since were very touched by the fact that you made it. You addressed all of us in a way that made us all feel important, and for one night we felt very important. As far as the lead up, what kind of did they fly you guys out? Did they fly the Hall of Fame plane here, or how did that work? How'd you get out there?
Well, a friend who also has a place out in PGA West, where our winter home is, Dwayne Folks. He's a Wisconsin guy, and he said, "Hey, Coach, you can use my plane." Well, he was going to go originally, then he couldn't, but he said, "Hey, you can still use my plane." So we were able to get some people out there. But the fact that we were able to get all 5 of our children with their spouses at the same time in one place, that was really neat for us because everybody goes their way, everybody has their jobs, but everybody. Matt's not married, but he does have a dog. But I said, Matt, you got to leave the dog at home. Uh, so he did. But Maren, Brenna, Will, and Megan, they all had their spouses there, and we got a really good family photo. We had some great shots of that, and that was very exhilarating for me to stand up there and then look out and see not only Kelly but all 5 children and their significant others.
That's very cool. That's going to kind of lead us into segment 2 of the show today. We're going to talk about some of the stuff that you did out there. I know I shared in episode number, I think it was 9, what I did out there, and it was a lot of people they could take and picture what kind of trip I had, and then people I talked to said, "Oh, it had to be so cool being out there," and it was. Now we're going to take a deeper behind the scenes look at the Hall of Fame and everything leading up to that through your eyes and your words. So we're going to do that in just a second. So again, we will be back with segment 2 of Survive and Thrive 87-91. My guest is Hall of Fame head coach Bo Ryan, and we're going to come back here in just a little bit to get a behind the scenes look at the Hall of Fame. So we'll be back in just a second. All right, Buck and Honeys is one of our sponsors for today's episode of Survive and Thrive 87-91. They sponsor our remote studios and facilitate the fun to ensure each guest has a memorable experience at a great value out in, whether you're in Wanakee, Monona, Mount Horeb, or their home office in Sun Prairie. They just have a great experience when you go there, the food, the atmosphere, and certainly my good friend and owner Tom Anderson has done a great job, and his sister Amy,
the man.
His sister Amy, who I've known since she was about 1 or 2 years old, customer service is at the high priority. So just a great experience, which is going to lead into segment 2, the great experiences that you had. I mean, as a player and fan and friend of the family, being able to be on the sidelines for that whole thing was awesome. You and your family arrived in Springfield. When did you guys get out there?
We got out there Friday, so we could prepare for what was coming, and there was a lot coming. But it was a smooth ride, and we got checked in at the Mohegan Sun, and kind of a very interesting place. You think, okay, it's a casino, but no, this was totally different than any other casino. I mean, it had a little bit of the Vegas atmosphere, but it just seemed a lot not quite as flashy. It was more down to earth. I don't know the proper description that I can give to people other than you felt very comfortable in there, and people were very helpful. And so that experience at the casino was fabulous. And then we didn't go to Springfield until Sunday morning.
Okay.
We did everything. Saturday was the ring and the coat and press conferences and things like that. So it was first class. They did everything in a way that made us feel comfortable, and it gave us a chance to practice our speeches. And so, yeah, it was, they've obviously done it before. So they've created a path for the inductees to follow, and it made a lot of sense what they did. And they gave us a time limit for our speeches, which was violated. But it all worked out. When people get their chance to say something, then they say it. And so everybody got a chance to do their thing, but they make you feel comfortable. They give you the opportunity to get the cobwebs out before the big event, knowing that you're going on live TV, you're in front of a live audience. So you have to be careful with what you say, because it'll be there forever. It's not hard to look up. So I was very impressed with the way they handled everything.
So let's start with one of the things. And if you go to the University of Wisconsin, Wisconsin men's basketball, probably social medias, there's a little clip of about 3 or 4 minutes of it shows you at the autograph session, and it shows different clips of you signing autographs, and you're talking about blowing on the ball. you're signing the ball and blowing on the ball. Oh, you don't want to touch that area. You don't want to smear that. And then there's another clip of you going over, and I think you took I don't know if it's a piece of a paper of some kind that you went over to talk to Doug Collins.
It had our name. It had the where we're supposed to sit.
Oh, like a nameplate or something. Yeah. But you took that over to Doug Collins and got his autograph. And I know you had mentioned
the kid in the candy store.
I know that was one of the top moments. Is from my standpoint, I turned into I went from a 50-something-year-old guy to a 12-year-old kid. Yeah. Instead of getting autographs like you did, I was getting selfies. I was trying to get selfies with these guys. But then you grabbed on to Chauncey, and I thought that was cool that you went over. And I don't know if you've met Chauncey before, but you shook his hand and gave a big bear hug, and he did the same thing back. And I thought it was funny. And I'm going to let you talk here, but I'm just pointing out what was funny is that he went over to Vince Carter and he said, well, hey, the JV line over, the JV's kind of warmed everybody up for the varsity down here. And I'm going to let you talk, Coach. So talk about that. Talk about the autograph session.
Well, he was, he thought that was pretty humorous.
Vinsanity.
Vince, yeah. Because he had a lot of fans there with his exposure over the years, and people that get so excited about dunks. Well, he's in the top 3 of the dunkers of all time, without a doubt.
Who are your 1 and 2, Coach, for the crowd?
Well, I don't know. The number 1 would be a guy named Emerson Baynard, who grew up in Chester, Pennsylvania, who dunked from the free throw line before
that was
Michael
cool.
Jordan did. He did it on what's called the Cage, our outdoor basketball court that all the guys from Chester, where they played. He would be the first one. And then I think David Thompson, there's no question what he did with his vertical and how he used it. I mean, there are people who can jump.
The Skywalker.
Yeah, I mean, there are people who can jump, and then there's, Michael can. Michael was just so good at everything. He's just in a class by himself. But I think David Thompson is a guy that used his vertical ability as well, if not better than anybody else.
I think I would throw in a high honor mention for Dominique Wilkins. He could get off the floor,
especially with the up and under.
Yes,
which was one of our 5 post moves, which you used to do so well. I don't know if you can still do it, but yeah. So I went over to Vince, and I said, and I'm standing there, and he's talking to a couple of people, and there were some other people coming over, and I mentioned about being in the JV tables before his. And I said, well, here now we've got the varsity. Now it's Vince, and he was kind of embarrassed when I said that, but he laughed. And but yeah, and not just then at the casino, but the next night, obviously, when you're around. Should we name the names?
Go ahead. I saw some of them, and then,
Well,
go ahead.
The
Start
most interesting
naming
one was my conversation with Spike Lee as I told him, why do you have to wear that shirt? That New York shirt. And he said, I'm from Philly area and grew up on all the Philly team. And he just laughed. He's going, oh, yeah, the rivalry. The rivalry with Philly and New York is one of the best. And I'm giving him crap about the jersey, but it was good-natured fun. And then, of course, me and Magic and Larry, and see, here I'm naming their first name.
Yep.
And the Doc, having grown up in the Philly area, and seeing him, and we had met before at some other functions, and just being around in the audience and getting a handshake or two from all the different people that were there, because everybody that goes in the Hall of Fame is always invited back for the rest of their days. I don't know when I'll be going back, but we'll be going back. But it's just one of those things where I really enjoyed watching my kids and their reaction to being around and getting some pictures and doing all that. They were certainly enjoying, and it made me happy. And Kelly and I were like, "Oh, isn't this great for the kids? This is their chance to get some pictures, get some autographs." And let's face it, we're people who grew up with the idea that, trying to be the best at something, and then to have something like this happen where they're telling you that you're one of the best. But wait a minute, I'm there, and my children are there, and the people like yourself that came to support, you get to be around royalty with those guys, especially from the NBA, because they obviously made that their living. Of course, now with NIL, there's people making their living at a much earlier age. So that was really cool, and it couldn't have worked out any better.
No, we were talking ahead of time. A couple of the players that we've watched induction ceremonies before. We've watched the Grammys, the Emmys, the Oscars, and for those individual things like the Emmys and the Oscars and the Grammys, that's the center of the world for those particular events. And to put it into perspective for me, it sometimes helps to say it, that the center of the basketball world was Springfield, Massachusetts on October 13th, 2024. That's at least how I looked at it. And we were there.
Yeah.
Dell and Robbie and TJ.
And it was very much appreciated.
And you were there. And I don't know if you've put that into perspective, but that was the center of the basketball world for a couple hours.
Don't pinch me.
No,
I don't want to be pinched.
No, we don't pinch yourself. We won't pinch you. So, couple of your top three moments, and I'll remind you of what they were, because we talked about this off air. The first one was, actually, let's go in reverse order. Okay? We're going to go in reverse order. So this was number 3. You said something about the health of the big guys that were there.
I'll tell you, it seems like, and I've had former players in that range, it just seems that the taller guys that played basketball, and that, no matter how many years that they played, but a lot of them were with canes, had a lot of surgeries, were bent over. And I remembered these guys when they were flying up and down the court, when they were doing physical things that like nobody else could do because of how athletic you have to be to play the game of basketball. And then to see taller than average players struggling physically at a younger age than you would think. I was I was shocked. And not all big guys break down sooner than other players, but it just seemed. And then after I mentioned it, the people that I mentioned it to said, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about those 7-footers, the guys that were there and the way they were moving, they were struggling a little bit. I was hit with that. It just kind of surprised me.
Yeah, it's that wow factor of, I know when I was looking at some of those guys as they were walking in, we were in the little entryway just outside of the red carpet, and some of those guys were walking in. The first guy I noticed was you talked about Dr. J, Julius Erving, and we wrangled him with the Ryans, and you got a picture, and the kids got a picture, I got a picture, and then I put my hand up by his because I heard he has these huge mitts, but then I'm looking at his hand and it was all mangled from reaching in, probably not reaching up, reaching down in, but dislocated fingers and jammed thumbs and I've heard Larry Bird's hands are like that, or just like just tough but at the same time, I think basketball has taken a toll on all of us, from the starting, the stopping, the jumping, all of those things, diving on the floor for loose balls. And I think I don't know where I get some money back from my elbows from taking charges at Williams Fieldhouse, but
just so people know, that's the home of the Pioneers.
The Platteville Pioneers, yes. And second top moment was you were like a kid in a candy store. This is a 70 plus year old guy, and I'm a 50 plus year old guy, and I had the same thoughts. I was like a kid in a candy store. You were like a kid in a candy store. Larry, Magic, Doctor, Coach Riley, all of these guys coming in, and yeah, I was a 12-year-old boy for about 3 hours.
Yeah. No, it's all those guys earned their respect that they received. And by respect, I mean when that committee selects people to go in, they're going in for a reason. And those guys, what they did for the game, like Magic and Larry during that, what that did for the NBA with the increase in TV revenue and it created quite the jolt that the NBA needed at that time. And to think that they're still coming back and being a part of this, knowing what they've meant to the history of the game, just then, and the two of them, and you got Michael, and all the other, I'll stop there because there's so many, but Magic, we had to bring up because Wes Matthews was there.
Oh,
Wes Matthews
yeah.
Sr. Came to the event, and Wes was the guy that hit the half-court shot to beat Michigan State and give Magic and Coach Heathcote and his team their last college loss that year because they went on to go into the NCAA tournament. The rest was history when they beat Indiana State and Larry Bird.
1979.
1979. That was quite the year. And I had to mention to Magic that, Magic, you probably forget this, but I talked Coach Cofield, the head coach, into when we finished our shoot around or the practice the day before the game at Michigan State in 76, 77. I got Coach Cofield to get, instead of going from the practice back to the hotel, we went to Lansing High School because I was recruiting Magic, trying to get him to take a visit to Wisconsin. And I thought, okay, if we show up with our guys and we go in and watch them practice. So I cleared it with everybody. And so here we come off the bus and everybody comes in. And I could tell some of the players were like, wow, why are we doing this? Why? Well, we're hungry. We just finished practice. We want to shower. We want to, get to doing the things we normally do the night before a game. Well, Then they saw him play. He obviously, can you imagine him with his high school team? How he would got, but his smile and I'll tell you, it was such a good recruiting tool that he committed to Michigan State the next day. So that's a true story, and I'm sticking to it.
If you didn't know, now you know. We heard the Jerry Reynolds story earlier, and now you get off the bus and you take the team to watch Magic Johnson play.
But remember, I'm not a storyteller.
But remember, you're not a storyteller. So, yeah, so cool. All right, so our last moment, and I wanted to save this one for last because it just puts a nice little cap on this episode, is the family was all there. I know you mentioned it at the end of segment one, and you talked about the family being there. And I think I mentioned to you off air that I've known Maddie, I've known Will, obviously you and Kelly, but I didn't really know the three girls. Since then, I've gotten to know them, and just how they are very much like you and Kelly, people first, and I think they don't always let maybe everybody in, but since they know that, the people that you're tight with must be okay. So and I spent some time with your daughter Megan a little bit as people were walking in, and she cost me an opportunity to see Larry Magic. But I tell you what, I had a great talk with her and about her business, and then of course talk with the other two girls, and it was just it was really cool to see. So yeah, go ahead and talk about the family there being there. I know we touched on it a little bit.
Well, yeah. Well, Maddie obviously came in from California, from LA, and Megan lives in Madison with her daughters, and so does Maren with her two daughters and a son, uh, which is going to end up totaling 12 here. And Emily and Will with their boys, who were obviously disappointed that they couldn't be there. We just couldn't take all 12 because of the age. The range was like 4 months to age 16. But I told them, they call me Beepa and they call Kelly Mima. And I said, we'll make up for this later. But the fact that they were there and could experience this, they were giddy. They appreciated the moment, and to get them there. Brenna is in Eau Claire. Megan and Maren, as I said, are in Madison. Will's in Green Bay still. So it would, to have them there in a positive environment for their father. They appreciated it, and they let me know that, and it was really neat to be able to get a family photo because of everybody going in different directions.
Yeah, you could have probably had Thanksgiving on Saturday night or Saturday, and you could have did Christmas on Sunday, and yeah, just to see all of the kids out there and the smiles, and they're just enjoying stuff just like we were, and you had already mentioned it, that it really brought us back to when we were younger, and if there was any nervousness or anxiety or anything, I think it was gone for like a couple of days. You could have went there and just seeing players, seeing family, seeing boosters. Um, I saw Kamea Costas and Marv Albert. Talked about that. Spike Lee. Yeah, you just kind of forgot about the whole world for a couple of days, and I can imagine it was very cool. And so I'm glad you took us a little bit behind the scenes. Certainly with the advent of the camera phone and a film crew behind, um, you can go and see a lot of those things. And I would encourage the people listening to the podcast today, go to Coach Ryan's speech. You can find that. Just Google Coach Ryan Naismith Hall of Fame speech. It's excellent, and Coach wraps up everything in there. And then you can probably access that little video of the autograph session because it was just so touching on how you were having the exchange with the little kids that came up and you were blowing on the ball we talked about. And then, yeah, Collins's autograph, and then talking to Vince. It was just all really, Really cool. All right, Coach, any last thing before we button things up here at all today?
No, I think it's nice to be able to talk to you. I really appreciated all your work behind the scenes to get everything for our little reunion that we had. Of course, it wasn't a little one. It was close to 100 guys coming back for the Platteville reunion. And, you know, the fact that we got a chance to talk about the John Roach's documentary on Howard Moore. The public, I think, is pretty well aware of the circumstances, and if they would like, they definitely need to see this somehow, some way. And we're hoping that it gets picked up by somebody. And I don't know exactly how all that works, but we're hoping it happens. But it was good visiting again and talking about some memories that our family will have for a long, long time.
Yeah, I think, like I had mentioned before, you will always have a seat, or you'll always have a platform to use here, and we're going to give you that platform just because you got a lot of stuff to share, and I think a lot of people spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to pay for this kind of information, and here you're giving it for free to our listeners, and I hope that they appreciate it. But so what an episode. Your preparation for induction was impeccable, and the attention to detail led to a very successful and anxiety-free weekend. You practiced your speech, putting on the coat. That allowed you to enjoy the weekend without thinking of too many things. So, call to action: preparation, preparation. Failure to prepare is preparing to fail. Attention to the little things is what has made a huge difference as players, for coaches, teams, for us as players and professionals. Practice, talking about practice, even a skilled speaker and someone who has been in front of the cameras before needs to practice and plan and rep things out. And really big thing today was with the don't drink and drive. So our next episode on Survive and Thrive 8791 is we will have another great guest who will share how they survived and thrived. So until next time, keep surviving and thriving. We look to hope to get you back again. Thanks, everybody.